My default is to be so supportive and encouraging, but I've seen people try and not be able to keep it up, and I know there's a pain in that. Hey y'all, it's Chimdi. I'm a creative coach and I help artists create consistently and authentically. When I talk to different clients, I usually can tell who's going to be successful and who won't, or I should say who will have more struggle and face more difficulty than others. And I want to share my reflections on that, specifically within the realm of being a YouTube creator, which is what I am. Before we get into it, thank you Patreon people for being the sexiest to ever do it, and subscribers, y'all are pretty hot as well, and I appreciate you subscribing to me. Also, I have a weekly newsletter where I share resources, things I'm reading and learning every single week, and you can sign up in the link below. So let's get into it in terms of talking about YouTube and the different fears people have when it comes to starting a channel. So they know they want to create, it's really on their spirit to do it, but they've got a lot of fear that's holding them back. I want to emphasize the validity of that fear, not only because fear is an emotion that lives in your body. If you are feeling it, you should honor it because it's the way that you show yourself, self-respect, all of that. But beyond that, just the genuine concerns you have about YouTube, you can find a lot of examples to justify those fears, especially if you're a woman creator, especially if you are a Black creator or a person of color creator. So for instance, people fear the hate and the negative comments, right? They fear that people will be really unkind and mean to them. I've been really blessed in my YouTube career that people have overwhelmingly been very kind, very supportive, very loving. And I would say on average, in the beginning, you'll get, if you're lucky to get any comments at all, that's awesome. And especially in the beginning, it's more likely to be people that know you, and so you're gonna get more positive comments. But as people who don't know you and just random strangers on the internet start to interact with your content, I think there's almost a guarantee that you're gonna start getting negativity. You're gonna start getting people projecting their stuff onto you. It's truly not even personal. It's like they need a reason to get it out, and you trigger something in them, and so they'll unload on you. You can know intellectually that it's not about you, but it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, because we're people, we're human beings, and when people say unkind things to us, it hurts our feelings. So there is a level of that you should expect. And so if you already know you're the kind of person who would be overwhelmed by that, who wouldn't be able to create that kind of separation to know that it's not really about you, who doesn't have any kind of inner practices to clear out that energy and detox that negativity from your system, you are right to be scared to start YouTube, because you may find that when people bring that energy to you, it's too much for you to handle. People also have the very legitimate concern that their content isn't going to be good enough. There are millions and millions and millions of YouTube channels. Usually what you see is based on what you have subscribed to and based on the algorithm, and it tends to be a certain level of quality. But if you want to, you can search and find people who are making videos on topics and their audio isn't good and their lighting isn't good and they're rambling and it's not clear what the point is and their thumbnail isn't good, and they're in that process of learning how to be better at it. And so if you know you're going to be starting from that same place of learning, and it makes you so uncomfortable to be in that process where you're publicly putting out things that just aren't that good, that's something to keep in mind. You know, I think the people who end up really making it on YouTube are the ones who know, yes, my vision for this video and for this thumbnail and for the quality is not being met right now, but if I stay consistent with it, eventually I'll get there. I went back and I watched some videos from like my 4th year, and I was still being so hard on myself about the quality of my videos, which was honestly fine, you know, like, but I had a really high standard. So even after 4 years of creating, I still was like, oh, that could have been better. And I was still thinking about how I could tweak and change things. But if you know after the first 2 or 3 videos, not even a year's worth of videos, the first handful of videos, that it's just gonna feel gross and cringy and frustrating to be putting things out and not getting the kind of traction and reaction you want, that's a good sign that it's not gonna be something you're gonna be able to stick with, because there are people who sort of create on YouTube and they make it right away, but I think a lot more people end up showing up again and again and again if they figure out exactly what it is that they're trying to say, exactly who they are, exactly what their niche or their audience or their brand is, all of that stuff. And it is trial and error. And if you aren't willing to have some of those errors, you aren't going to be able to stay in the game long enough to see that kind of growth. The other thing that I see people having concerns about is their consistency, like whether they'll be actually able to create every week, a few times a week, for months and maybe even years at a time as a creator, especially if they're in that learning phase where editing still takes a really long time, where they still don't really know how to script their videos, where they still don't really know what it is they're trying to say and who it is they're talking to. It's such an uphill battle to get just one video done. So the thought of being able to create a video every single week, or to create the systems so that you can batch record your videos, a lot of folks are overwhelmed by that process. And I know for me, in the beginning, I was really good, like, you know, when I first started my channel, but then I did have periods where I was not consistent and I fell off. What makes it especially hard is that I think the goal should always be the joy of creating. And I think this is super key in terms of your consistency, is that joy. But of course you want an audience to watch. You want people who are in the comments engaged. You want people to share your content. You want sponsors to find it valuable and pay you money. You want to make the AdSense. You want it to be something that is reciprocal. You know, it's not just this one-way thing. And in the beginning, while you're still figuring things out, it's gonna be a one-way thing. You're gonna work really, really hard on videos. You're gonna put it out and you're gonna get 0 comments. You're gonna get only a handful of views if you're lucky. People aren't gonna be sharing it. It's gonna feel as if you did all this work for nothing. Okay, love this for me. Bop, right there. Right there, yeah. And if you are the kind of person who would get overwhelmed by that and you'd say, what's the point? It's gonna be really hard for you to keep creating consistently, especially year after year after year. I, in 4 years, got about 4,000 subscribers with, like I said, some times of inconsistency, but I had, you know, hundreds of videos on my channel and I still only had 4,000 subscribers. My channel didn't really grow in a major way until my 4th year of creating. So if I had stopped at any of those prior years before, then I wouldn't be able to make videos the way I do now, connect with people the way I do now, get the opportunities that I get to have now, because I would have called the failure at 3 years. And I can fully understand why it would be reasonable and why it would make sense to do that. If someone told you, hey, I've been doing this thing for 3 years and I really haven't seen that much traction, it wouldn't be unreasonable for you to say,
hey, maybe do something else?
Because it kind of seems like what you're doing ain't working. Like, that's totally a reasonable response. That's why it's so important that the joy of creating is the #1 thing that's driving you. Because I would make videos and get like 50 views in a week, and it would take so long to make and edit and all this different stuff, and I'd be frustrated because I'd be thinking, I know, especially at the point where I was like, okay, this actually is good though. This isn't the trash I was putting out when I first started. And I truly don't think I was ever putting out trash, but it has only gotten better. And yeah, I was still putting out stuff and people still were like,
yeah, no thank you.
That is super duper frustrating. But I knew, like, I am ultimately doing it because I like doing it. Like, I want to do it. And even if it was only a few hundred people watching every week, I would still create it. And what's super interesting is that, you know, my channel was getting a certain kind of viewership for those first few years when I only had 4,000 subscribers. And then when my channel grew with the video about quitting my job that went viral, my video started getting way more views, and I started thinking that was the new normal. And then what's happened in the last few months is my views have gone way down. So now my views are like 300 to 400 views a video, and I've got around almost 20,000 subscribers. So it's like a really small fraction of the people who have subscribed, but I still put out a video every single week because I like to put out the videos that I put out. I know that the people who are watching are the people who are supposed to be watching, and if I'm making something good that really resonates, then eventually the people who are supposed to find it are gonna find it, and I don't need to be worried about that. What's tricky is if you're trying to make YouTube your full-time job. And that's part of the reason why I'm doing the coaching and supporting other artists, is because I'm not making enough on AdSense to live off of, you know? Like, it would be a really uncomfortable life if I was having to live off of my AdSense, off of sponsorships. There's a whole strategy you can do to like build, you know, potential sponsor lists and send out emails, and you can even approach the types of videos you make differently if your point is to get certain kinds of sponsors. And ultimately, like, that's just not my relationship to YouTube. And I've really wrestled with that. I see that it's a thing I could do and make money doing it. There's something in me where it's just like, yeah, I don't want to, like, you know? And that could change. That could be like a trauma response that I need to heal. For right now, I'm not called to do that. But that's meant that I keep showing up for my audience week after week. Because there are many people who start creating, they create a handful of videos, that's the last thing you see of them. There are creators who start creating, they blow up, they're successful, they get burnt out, that's the last thing you see of them. I knew for me, like, I wanted to create this channel that would last for a while. You know, my original goal when I started my YouTube channel was to do it for at least 7 years. That's how I started started was like, this is a 7-year plan for creating on YouTube. And we're coming up on 7 years. End of 2023 will be 7 years. And at that point, I will decide, okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to keep doing it? Do you want to shift focus? Do you want to do something else? Like, who knows? But I went in with a much longer term vision for myself. I wasn't living and dying with every single video. So if you're the kind of person who knows that having this roller coaster of views would really cause you emotional or mental turmoil, then you maybe know that, oh, YouTube might not be the thing for me. And if you don't just inherently like creating videos, you don't get excited about the lenses and the lighting and the angles and this and that, and how do I get good audio and all of these things, if that doesn't just inherently inspire you, you can know that it's gonna essentially feel like a job. People do jobs to make money. Like, they don't have any kind of grander reason for working where they work. They're like, no, I have bills, I wanna go on trips, I need money to do that, so I'm gonna work this job and do it. So you can treat YouTube just as that, just as this job, but then it won't be joyful and fun, and you'll be spending a lot of time doing something that isn't joyful or fun. And then what is the point of your life, you know? Like, what was it all for, right? If you have fears around starting a channel that are related to living and dying by the view count, people saying mean things to you, not being able to be consistent. I didn't even talk about like not even knowing what to say and who you're talking to, being nicheless, all these different things. These are really valid concerns. And I know creators who have started channels who are still wrestling with these things. And these are things that I still wrestle with. But because I'm committed to creating, I'm walking that path and I'm walking with these challenges instead of letting them stop me. But if you know that your love of creating isn't so great that you're willing to be with those challenges, then you can do yourself a favor and not even move forward. And that feels so strange to say because my default is to be so supportive and encouraging, but I've seen people try and not be able to keep it up. And I know there's a pain in that. And I also think, like I said, there's also a joy that comes from, oh, I tried. It was this sort of mystery for the longest time. Like, can I do this thing? I gave it a shot and I realized it wasn't for me. That's how I was with my locks, y'all. I gave my locks 20 whole days and I realized it wasn't for me. And now I know. So there's beauty in like, oh, this question is now answered. Basically, I can save you some time and some money spent on buying lenses and a camera and a mic and doing all the things if you know that it actually deep down won't be something you'll be able to commit to. And I think if you've watched this whole video and you haven't started a channel and you've heard all of these objections and you're still like,
Yeah, I think I'm still gonna do it though.
great, that means that you probably are gonna succeed because you're not gonna let these things stop you. And that really is the key. Let me know in the comments, are you a creator on YouTube or elsewhere in your life? What are some of the challenges you've run up against? And have you let them stop you, or are you still sort of going after your creative dreams? If you're interested in coaching, you can DM me on my coaching Instagram, Coaching by Chimdi. You can also use the link below to set up a discovery call. All right, I'll see you on the next one. Bye.